Good morning. How are you? Okay, so I'm a little nervous because this is going to actually be the first video that I'm recording that I plan to put on YouTube. Now, I put the last video because I still had it saved on YouTube as a getting started. But this one's actually going to be the one I know, because when I did that last video, I had no idea I was going to put it on YouTube. So, yeah, this will be interesting, and we'll see how it goes. So those of you that are new, that maybe have found me through YouTube, hello, how are you? I'm so glad you're here. I really am. A little bit about myself. My name is Erin. Apologize for the nails not being done. I should have had that taken care of. I didn't. You'll see I plan and then I don't always follow through. Sorry about that. I've been hosting a page on Facebook and Instagram for, I don't think it's quite been 2 years yet, but it's Ageless Beauty with Erin. And now I'm on the tube. So, I will do a video, I was thinking about this morning, that does an introduction video so you all can get to know me and I can just tell you about my quirky self. But that's not why we're here today. So today, the series I am doing, I've been watching the ID channels, Evil Lives Here. I'm kind of obsessed. So I was watching it and really enjoying it. And how this all started is I was doing a video and as I was doing my video, I was just doing a makeup look. I'm talking about the makeup. I started talking about the episode I had just watched, the newest episode at that time of Evil Lives Here. And I realized I enjoy doing this. It's very, I don't know, it's cathartic, the word I'm looking for. Either way, I enjoyed it. So I said, well, let's try this. So I'm on my 3rd episode and I'm hoping you guys are liking it. So the first episode on Facebook, I couldn't get that pulled to put over here. Second episode has been loaded on YouTube and is on Facebook. And this is the 3rd episode. So today's episode's called Cheating Death. So as I talk about it, I will just do my makeup. And for those of you that don't know, I do my makeup with what I call a makeup roulette. And unless I have somewhere I have to be, when I do these videos, you can so easily do the same look over and over and over, same colors, especially if you're comfortable with neutrals or colors. I'm a neutral girl. Like when I go in my regular life and have meetings, I typically do a nice neutral look. So when I get on here, I like to do something different. So the makeup roulette really kind of challenges me. So what it is I have an app that it's a Pick For Me app, and I put all my makeup down in different categories. There's foundations, contours, concealers, you get the idea. And I've recently started doing a color scheme. So before I go in and hit my eyeshadow palettes, I hit color scheme. So it tells me what color to do. So today's color scheme is pink. I think my first one was orange. The first one was green. The second one was maybe orange, because I was thinking I've done orange and green. And this one's pink. So then I pick a palette. Thankfully so far, no, red was the last look. Thankfully so far, every palette I've picked has been able to have that color in it. So today's look will be pink, and we'll just get started. I've been actually doing my eyes first, which is something kind of new, but in the same idea that if I have to start over, it's easier just to start with the eyes. So there you go. Okay, so as I get prepped, I will put everything in the description of what I'm using. I don't quite link everything. I haven't gotten that far, but if it's something you want me to link, let me know. Otherwise, I'll just put the descriptions below and we'll go from there. So let me make some adjustments to my notes in my mirror and get started. So I do want to add a disclaimer, and I didn't do this for the other two, and I can see where I really should from now on. But this it's just a little trigger warning that this episode deals with domestic violence and some mentions of rape. So if that does trigger you, if that is something you don't want to hear about or have discussed, please feel free to click out. Hope you check my other videos. I really like having you here, and but I just want to be fair in letting you know that that is the case. Okay, so cheating death is today's episode, and normally and if you've been watching my shows, you've probably seen where I mentioned how The Evil Lives Here starts always with like news footage or well, no, it actually starts with the producers miking up whoever it is that they will be talking to. And so you see them putting the mics on her or him, and today's episode's a her. And just talking, getting comfortable before you get into the episode. So that is not what happened this time. This time it went right into the explosive news footage. Now, that is also something that it does. It gives you news footage, which is actually kind of cool. You get to see, like last episode, you actually saw interview footage from, interrogation. So this time you're just seeing news footage, and you're seeing the police walk out this elderly gentleman. And it is stated that he's 63 years old, but it doesn't, if it gives it his name at that time, I miss it. So it just said 63 years old. He's being escorted. They don't really tell you much more. So then, and I'm sorry, I still have not got to the point where I can't look at my notes. I have to look at my notes because it helps keep me on track. But then the lady comes on and she says, watch this section of the footage. She said, right here, look at him. And he is making this god-awful, ugly, mean mugging to the camera. I mean, it looks, he's going for an evil look, and he achieves it. So, she says, and I quote, this is the face that she used to see all the time. She said, this is the face of sheer evil. And then you could think maybe she's been a little dramatic. I mean, really? But, I don't know. Is she? So, we have not been introduced to this woman's name. And that's kind of odd. Usually they come in and they tell you their names and relations pretty quickly. Not this case. Right now, we are she's still there. She's still talking. And she says that it's been quite hard sitting and talking to the camera crew, the producers, and everything about this and reliving it again and again and again. She said that this guy, who we still don't know his name, is pure evil. He's vile. And she needed to get away from him. She can't express just how scared she was. So we know that there is a connection. We don't know if she's daughter, sister, wife. I mean, we don't know yet, but we know that at some point they lived together and that she was terrified of him. So then we have the theme song, which, if you guys have been with me for the last couple episodes, you know I love this theme song. I actually put a clip in the last episode about it, but I will not continue to talk about this theme song, excuse me, every time it comes on. I mean, I can get very repetitive. Y'all know I like it, so we're just going to say it's a theme song. And so when we come back, it's a picture of a dark-haired man. And the lady again speaking, saying that he was a psychopath. I mean, I guess she's really selling that he was evil, that he was a psychopath, that there was problems. So I get that. But she's saying his name is Peter Tobin. She says Peter Tobin is a psychopath, purely and simple, and she's lucky to be alive. So that's how we come back from the introduction to the show. And so we finally get a little bit of information about this lady. Her name is Kathy Wilson. She was married to Peter, so now we know she was his wife. And I'm not laughing because it's funny. I'm laughing because she states this numerous times. And like I said, she's really letting us know how evil he was. And I don't really think there was much doubt about how evil he was once we got to know what he did, who he was, and so on and so forth. But she said he could just be so cruel. And she didn't deserve what he did to her. All she ever tried to do was be the best wife she could be. So, now for Kathy's backstory. And believe me, I'm going to tell you, I have a lot of comments and questions, and I'm trying not to be, so I'm not going to be judgmental as I'm going to try not to be judgmental, because some of this is just like, are you kidding me? But, yeah, I'm going to try to be good. So we find out for her backstory, and this series really does a great job telling us the backstories. Like, it always starts with the video or footage of some sort from the news. So you're actually seeing live footage. And then it goes back into how we got to this point. So, ouch. So in this episode, we saw Peter Tobin being escorted out of the courtroom. Now we're going to learn how he got to that point. Kathy is telling the story. She said that when she met Peter when she was 16, she said, she became, and I quote, a wild child, unquote, at the age of 14. Now, I have kids. I have a daughter. She's quite a bit older now. I mean, she's not older. She's in her 20s. But, questions, you know. As a mother, here they come. But, she said, at 14 is when she discovered alcohol in boys. She said one thing she really liked doing is getting dressed up, putting on some short mini skirts and lots of makeup, going to the local pub, and drinking, dancing, and partying until about 2 a.m. Okay. Personally, I did not do that at 16. I might have done it before I was 21, but I did not do it when I was 16. And lots and lots of questions. So one thing I've noticed is that she has an accent. And later on, the reenactment actors do too. And, but it never tells us where they're at. Like, I don't know. So that to me might be really good information. Because, first of all, she's 16. She's in a pub drinking. So I need to know what country she's in, that's allowed, because I don't think that's really ever been allowed in the States. I could be wrong. But, so it's kind of my first question. Where is she at that she can do this? Excuse me. Second question, where's her parents? You knew it was coming. As soon as I said I was a mom and I had a daughter, y'all knew I was going to say, where's the parents? I don't know. I don't know where the parents is. So there's a lot going on here. A lot to unpack. I don't have a problem with the makeup. I don't have a problem with her dressing up in short skirts. I did that myself. And I'm going to put this out here. I am not telling you this to shame her or victim blame her in any way. I'm actually bringing this up because she does. Later in the story, she proceeds to talk about how she's changed. So you get a visual of how she is now, which includes partying, short skirts, dresses, and going to the pub. So it is a reference point. So please don't believe I'm trying to shame her in any way. I don't care what you wear. I don't care where you go or how old you are. You never deserve nobody deserves what she went through. So I do want to put that out there. Please don't come for me. I am not victim shaming her at all. I am giving you a point of reference on just some things that she's got, that she has mentioned, so you will see how she changes later. Okay? Okay, good. Now, she said when she was in the bar that night she met Peter, she saw him first. She liked the look of him. She was actually the reenactment people, which you could take with a grain of salt, but the reenactment people show her with somebody else having a drink. And she leaves that person, that man, and goes over to Peter and asks him to buy her a drink, which he does. So I just say that we take it with a grain of salt because this reenactment, I've noticed in the last couple of videos or episodes, aren't always quite right. I don't know. There's always just something a little off, whether it be the actor's age, whether it be, you know, what the person's telling us versus what we're seeing on the reenactment. I have noticed there's been some differences. So, just saying that, I just want to put that out there, that there is that difference that could be happening. But she tells us, she said, I went up to him. I liked the look of him. And I asked him to buy me a drink, and he did. So that's how the relationship started. And then she says he was 18 to 20 years older than her. Okay. I'm just going to leave that there. 18 to 20 years. Kathy then makes a statement that she really, and she's 16, okay? She is 16, and she really wanted to become a wife and have a husband to nurture and take care of her, which leads me to all kinds of questions on the upbringing that she may have had, what she's gone through. You know, there's something going on there if she is looking to get married at such a young age and have a husband. But it's really never mentioned, so we'll just leave it at that. So then the reenactment video, or people, or actors, excuse me, start showing them out and about, and one day they're out walking, and you know, she's dressed really cute in this pretty dress and very form-fitting, the actress is, and I have to assume that that's probably, they're trying to reenact how she actually looks. So she would have been a very attractive young lady, slender, whatever. She was, I want to say, because I will get into this in a little bit, but she was a beautiful woman, and I'll get into that here in a minute. Wait a minute. I've already skipped that part, so let's talk about this. So Kathy is on here, and she looks to be close to my age, maybe a little bit older. So I'm really confused again on the events that, you know, we wouldn't have been that different when she was 16. I probably wasn't, but 14, 13, somewhere along those lines. You see what I'm saying? So she looks extremely good for her age. So this reenactment actor is quite a beautiful young lady. Here it is. I knew something was on my face. She's very pretty. She's very fit physically, slender. And everything that they've shown to this point shows her in very nice form-fitting dresses. You know, so on and so forth. So, I think that they were really doing that to express how she looked and everything. Which, again, looks, not victim shaming her. There is a reason why her looks are mentioned, why what she's wearing becomes important. So, sorry. Okay, so I get back to this reenactment, and they're showing her out. She's in this really pretty dress. They're walking. He offers her his coat. I don't know. It could have been cold. It could have been warm. It was a beautiful day for the actors. I don't know. So, I have very limited space, and it's killing me. I need to figure something out. So, you know, she said that he used to make her feel very special, doing things like giving her his coat, or he had little nicknames for her. He called her Pet, Darling, and Little Hen. And she really liked the attention she was getting. She quickly fell in love with him, she said. Okay. But, you guys, my questions just keep coming. Where are the parents? How is this happening? You know, whatever. So she said that eventually Peter asked her to move in with him. So she did. She said it was 4 to 5 weeks after they met, she's moving in with him at 16. Okay, we're just going to leave that there. Now, not that I have enough questions. She states that for the first month, 6 weeks, so on, things were really great. Were perfect. That's what she said. Fantastic. She started noticing little things. Like, he never wanted to go back out to the pub or to hang out with her friends. So the first 6 weeks of their living together, they still went out to the pub. They still drank. They still hung out with friends, danced, and had a good old time. Well, that was ending. And I think I'm out of foundation. So, yeah, this is not the best. Anyway, so he told her they were no longer going to go out. And she's like, we always go out. What's going on? Anyways, he just told her they weren't doing it anymore. Okay, so she doesn't question it, and they quit going out. And then, whenever she dressed up and put makeup on, he started insulting her. He started telling her she looked like trash while she would be in a Tarte. And another reason why the time period and the geographic location would be amazing, because, again, Tarte is not something we use often unless I'm talking about my Tarte foundation that I'm out of. So, anyways, I don't know if I have enough. We'll try it. So she started, you know, because he was insulting her, calling her names. She started dressing blander. She started wearing very little to no makeup. And she wasn't even realizing she was doing it. So he was basically grooming her, training her, changing how, you know, she's always done things. And he's doing it so well, she really isn't even noticing it, which is so scary. But that's what happens when, you know, these older people take in young kids and love them. They start grooming them to what they want. So she said she thought that he was just jealous of any attention that she would get when they were out. So that's why she went along with it. She said, you know, I didn't want him jealous. I was in a relationship with him. Okay. She said, and it comes back to present, because by this time there's been reenactment actors. I'm just going to start saying actors because that's a lot. The actors have been showing this up until this point. Her dressed in this really pretty form-fitting dress with her makeup and hair done, and him calling her names, calling her trash, telling her she looks like trash, and she's being a tart. So all that we see, she's telling us, but we also see it in the reenactment. So we come back, and she's telling us, or Kathy is now looking through an old photo album, and she's looking at some pictures, and she says, I don't even recognize myself. She said, I'm wearing very drab clothing, grays, and mostly grays for what the picture showed. And she said, my hair's not done. She said, it's just kind of pulled back. She said, there's no makeup to be seen. She said, this was not me, but this is the me he was making her. And she, I don't know, didn't realize it, didn't know enough to realize what was happening. More than likely is what was happening. She had no idea it was happening. So, she said she then started realizing, as we've already realized and discussed, that he is trying to control her. But she does nothing about it. She just, wants to make him happy. So she does whatever he says. I'm sorry, all this is very sad to me, And I know, sitting out here in my safety of my makeup room, I can say that, and I've not been in that position, so I'm trying not to be judgmental. So please, I am trying not to be, but there's so many questions about this, so much, that I think could have helped her. But let's go on. So she said every day when he left for work, which they never told us what he did for a living, so I honestly have no idea what this guy did to make a living. I'm just realizing I am all over the place. I'm forgetting stuff. I'm a mess. Anyways, so they never tell us what he did for a living. But before he went to work every day, he gave her a list of chores that had to be done. Things like vacuuming and sweeping and food shopping. She always said food shopping. And I guess in a way I understand. I do my food shopping pretty much the same place I do my other shopping, meaning, household items and stuff. But I guess wherever they're located, again, I don't know, this would be a specific thing. So she said he controlled all the money. She had no money. So on the days that she had to go food shopping, he would give her a specific amount to spend. And then when he got home, he would look over the receipt and make sure what she bought was what he deemed necessary. What an awful way to live. So she said one day she was there at the store and got herself a lipstick. So, I take that back. Maybe it is like a store that we would go to that has, cosmetics, and I really don't know. Again, I don't know where they're at. So it's hard to guess anything. So, so she bought herself some lipstick. That would be a mistake. Okay, I want to apologize. I've got some Corgos in the back I don't know if you can see the other one, but the dogs are in. They're probably gonna start making some noises. This is just the fun of hanging with Erin. Just put that out there. So anyways, she went to the store. She bought herself some lipstick. And when he come home and he looked at this, he got irate. I'm not surprised. Are you surprised? No, no, not at all. And he started yelling at her, calling her names, telling her she was being selfish, that she should think of them more than her. So she said he made her feel absolutely awful for buying something for herself. She said she never did it again. She didn't want to disappoint him. So yeah, it's really heartbreaking when you start hearing that. And I think you'll hear that. I know you're going to start hearing things like that more often. So, okay, where am I at? So now we're going to start learning about Peter's violent side. And the first time Kathy actually physically saw this violent side. Before he'd been calling her names, he'd been leading up to violence, but not shown violence. So I can almost forgive her, and I don't need to forgive her, but I can almost understand her when she says, you know, I don't know. Do I? I don't. But for a young kid, and she's like trying to please somebody, she thinks she's doing it wrong. That was her mentality and her thought process. So I get that, I guess. And in a way, overlook it, right? I don't want to say forgive her. She has absolutely nothing to be forgiven for. So when I said that a minute ago, I was clearly in the wrong. But, so the first time she saw his actual violent side, she said, one day he came home from work and she's like, what do you want for supper? And he said, pork chops. She said she was extremely excited about making him pork chops because it's one of his favorite foods. But she had never fried them. I guess she'd always baked them or something. I don't know. Or he did it. It doesn't specify why she had never done it. Because if it's his favorite food, she knows that. They've had it at some point. I just am not sure logistically here, you know, who's cooked it in the past. So she didn't know what she was doing. And she thought, when she was frying them, that it's so sad. It's kind of funny in the sense, but she was frying these up, and it really, to me, showed her age. And she cooked it a couple of minutes on one side, and then went back and cooked it a couple minutes on the other side, and thought, voila, they're done. They started changing color. They, to her, she thought they looked done. Now, I like to cook. I learned from my parents, which are from my mom and my grandmother, which I have done the same with my daughter and even my son. And it's so funny because even now he'll call me and say, hey, Mom, how do I cook this? What do I need? You know, and he doesn't just ask for ingredients. He's like, what pans? What, you know, thermometers? What do I need to make this right? He said, what did you use? Is basically what he says. I want to do it like yours. That's always such a great thing to hear. I mean, I love it when he does that, you know, but because he's, you know, he's older, he's 27, he's on his own, he's engaged, he's starting his own life, and the fact that he still wants some of what I gave him food-wise, even, just something that's simple, is very heartwarming to me. Anyways, I'm digressing here from the story. And the importance of the story. So she served it to him, and she said she was so happy. She put it on the plate. She had it all worked up. She said, I presented it to him with this big smile on my face. Said he cut into it and completely lost his shit. Said, what is this? You expect me to eat this? Are you trying to poison me? I mean, yeah. Really bad. And accusing her of trying to poison him and kill him, and you get it. It's not a good situation. So she's telling him, she says, I didn't know, I will fix it, let me go back and fix it. And he literally takes the plate, slams it against the wall, shattering it everywhere, and barely missing her head when he did it, and then storms out of the room. So there's some violence. It's a prequel to what is to come, honestly. But she said she was completely stunned, as she didn't expect that behavior. She'd seen him be angry. She'd seen so many things, but never seen the physical violence. And so she's literally, it shows her on the floor cleaning up his mess. And when he comes back and hugs her and asks her to forgive him and blah, 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 you know. Anyways, so she tells him it was her fault. She was sorry. She would do better. She said she thought she wasn't living up to his expectations, and it was her job to do better. Just going to leave that there for a minute. Yeah, that's just so sad. So, moving on. Then, she said no matter what she did, his foul mood never got better. It just, from that point on, seemed to continue to get worse. He started calling her bitch, and another word that I will not repeat. And instead of calling her by name, wonderful dogs. Let me tie him out to calm that down. Okay, they might have calmed down. Who knows? So she said one morning, oh no, he was calling her these names. So instead of calling her by Kathy, it was, hey, bitch, this, or hey, something else. It was constant. She said he would do it for the simplest things and just get angry at her. Like, I want a cup of tea or something like that. He would have to call her by that name. So she started living like that, where, you know, everything he said to her like that. So one morning, he wanted toast. And of course, she went and fixed him some toast. And one side of one piece of toast burnt. And I'm probably going to say we've all been there. I don't know. I know I have. But she said when she set it down in front of him, he again got very irate. Was like, what is this? You expect me to eat this? Yada, yada, yada. And she told him, she says, where's this at? She told him to calm down. I guess she was trying to get a little gumption back. I don't know. She said, just calm down. I'm going to make more. It's okay. It's all right. Yeah, no, that did not go over well. And he was sitting at the table, lunged at her, grabbed her by her neck, slammed her against the wall, started cussing, spitting at her, you know, that kind of thing, telling her to never backtalk him again. Next time, he would break her, do bodily harm, and, let's see, yeah, if she ever did it again. So she said it just terrified her, because one minute he's sitting there, next minute he is lunging at me like a bullet. She said I didn't even see it coming. She said it happened that fast. Yeah, I bet that was quite scary. I'm not even going to lie. So she said he let her go, you know, and stalked away. Said she was just terrified. This is the first time she thought, or that it had happened, and she unfortunately thought it was her fault. That if she did better, it wouldn't happen. She was determined to make the relationship work. Then they had a child together. And I'm going to take a moment and I'm going to repeat that. She had a child with him. And she thought having a child, and this probably goes back to her family that we don't know anything about yet, she thought that she should be married to Peter. I'm taking the moment because it's so sad. I'm taking a moment because she's still a child. They haven't told us her name or her age now. She's still a child. I will say I know because I've seen the episode. And she now has a child with him. And she's agreed to marry, or she wants to marry him. And I think from what I understood, marriage was actually her thought. She brought it up. I don't know, this is so sad. So she then says, okay, let me back up because I want to just say something here. I am not trying to be judgmental. I know it's coming off very harsh, very judgmentally, and I'm trying not to because I've not been in her position ever. So I cannot say how I would react as a child in the position that she found herself in. I could sit here in front of this mirror and tell you all what I would do. I don't know. I would like to think that's what I would do, but come on, seriously. We don't know. We don't know unless we're in this position. So I do want to say I struggle. I struggle a lot with her self-blame and justifications of what he's doing to her. I struggle with where is her family? Why has nobody taken care of this young girl and knows what's going on? I don't know. We're getting ready to get into her story a little bit, but it's still not mentioned enough for me to feel like there was justification. You know what I mean? I don't know. So, that being said, I struggle with what she says next when she's talking about wanting to get married to. She says that there had only been 1 or 2 instances of erratic behavior. So she thought marriage was a great idea. I'm just going to move right along because that's a really sad statement. So then we get a little bit of Kathy's childhood. And she said she had a very difficult childhood, which I'm sure most of us can say we're not surprised just on some of the things that she has said and led up to. So she said that she said her mother died when she was 8 years old, and there has never been a mention of a father. So as far as that goes, I really don't know anything. I can't tell you anything about a father. Obviously there was one. She's here. But, you know, kind of get the idea maybe he was just a sperm donor. But literally nothing's ever said of him, so I'm just kind of stretching that when I say it. So she lived with her grandparents from the time she was 8 to 16 when she moved out and lived with Jerk. Sorry. It doesn't specify exactly how old she was when she got married, but she had to be really quickly in the 16, 17 maybe range. Or when she had her child, which I think she had the child first and then the marriage. I know I did from what she was saying. So, she was really young. So now Kathy is showing pictures of this really happy family. And Peter was a doting, happy father. He showed pictures of him playing in the backyard and whatever with their son. And she said she never saw the monster that he was becoming because she was so blinded by the fact that he was such a good father to her son. Again, probably leads right back to her story that she hasn't or isn't going to tell us about her father. So Daniel's the son. And, she said they often played in the backyard, was in the garden. She's called the backyard the garden. So I'm thinking from the pictures I saw, it was a pretty decent size, and there was a pretty good sized garden. And in that garden, Peter had dug out a sand pit for Daniel. Keep that in mind. That comes back very important. And they played in it daily. Peter played in the sand pit with Daniel daily. But he started his erratic behaviors again. And mine's just blown here. So he started isolating her even more from her family and friends. She wasn't allowed to go out anywhere without him. So even to the backyard, he followed her. I guess he was afraid she was going, or she said he was afraid she might talk to the neighbors. I don't know about y'all, but warning bells all over the place, right? She said if she had to go to the store, he now drove her. He took her car keys so she couldn't go anywhere and now drove her wherever she needed to go because he says, you don't need those. My head actually hurts sometimes. And then this is I'm going to have to stop here and not even do makeup because this really confused me. Plus, I'm almost done. I always do that. I have got to get my timing down for this makeup thing and talking. But not only was he taking her car keys, he started taking her house keys, and he was locking her in the house. How? I'm so confused. How do you lock somebody in the house? The reenactment, which of course we take with a grain of salt, but showed him walking outside the door, shutting the door, taking the key, and locking the deadlock. I mean, I've never seen a deadlock that didn't have a thing on the inside. So it had to be been a special lock that he put on there. It had to have been. But I don't understand. It never specifies that he actually put like a specific lock on there to keep her in. Just that he locked her in where she couldn't go anywhere. And then it says, oh no. And then I'm concerned. She's locked in this house with her son. What if there'd been a fire? What if there'd been a medical emergency? She was not going to be able to leave until he come back from work. But it gets worse. It gets so much worse. Eventually, after he left, so one day after Peter left for work, locked her in, some guy showed up, started knocking on the door. She'd never seen him before. She had no idea who he was. And she tells him, she says, I'm sorry, I can't open the door or answer the door because it's locked. So then this man proceeds to take out a set of keys and let himself in. You heard that. Let himself in. Saying, it's all right, Peter gave me a set of keys. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So then, she said this became a daily habit. If this Peter leaving and this guy coming over, letting himself in. She said the first time it happened, the one I'm just talking about, she didn't know what to think. She had no idea what to think. So she told him, Peter's not here. He said, that's okay, I'll wait. So she said, let's go sit down and have some tea. She said that every day he'd come over, he'd sit in the living room, watch TV, she'd make him tea, and they would sit there in silence. She said, I don't remember him ever once talking to me. My mind is blown. So, a couple questions that I have to ask. First off, where's your self-preservation? There's a stranger in your house that you cannot leave. You have a phone. It shows you on the phone. Because as he's isolating her, he is only allowing her to have one phone call a week to her grandparents, and it lasted 3 to 4 minutes. I forgot to mention that earlier, but I'm glad I did now, because why didn't she call anybody? Somebody. Another thing, she's in this house with this stranger, and her son's there. Where is her protective nature? So she might not be able to stop the fact the guy's in the house, because he's obviously bigger than her. She said he was a big, brutish guy, and he's coming in. He's not harming her, but he's still there. Why is she not locking herself in the room with her son until her husband gets back? And another thing that I don't know, she very well could have, but she never stated, she questioned Peter about this. She just assumed that she now had what she called a minder. Again, there's somewhere, because some of these terms that they use are quite different. But he was there to mind her when Peter was gone. So essentially, she was under 24-hour guard and lock and key. Somebody was with her 24 hours a day. Okay. So, she knew something was wrong, something wasn't right. It's really sad it took this long. But she said she couldn't leave. She had no money. She had no family she could talk to. She had no friends. He had isolated her. And nowhere to go. That was the point. That's what he wanted her to do. And she says now that she actually had a guard, Peter spent more and more time away from the house. She said he would be gone for hours at night. And then sometimes overnight. She said, I really thought he was having an affair. She said, but there was no proof to question him. Frankly, I don't think she would have questioned him. It wouldn't have been, I can't imagine it would have gone well if she had questioned him. But she said, so, you know, it was just what it is. But she said, honestly, I came to treasure those nights that he wasn't there. So the nights that he was gone, it's like the nights she actually got to sleep and, you know, enjoy herself, even if she had a minder. That just is very sad, because now she has this person she's considering her bodyguard, and she's happier that he's there and not her husband. Okay. So, this is where things really get hard. One night they were in bed. It was her and Peter. And I say that like there was any other option. So one night they're in bed, and there's a knock on the door. And it's pretty late, she said. And she was really confused. She said Peter got out of bed to go answer it, and she could tell by the voice that it was a female. She said so she didn't know why the female would be coming to their house late at night, but she said Peter answered the door. She didn't think anything of it. And then about 20 minutes later, she started hearing what sounded like sex. So, and she said there was crying involved and screaming, and, you know, they had a son in the house. So she said she got up to investigate and walked in on Peter having sex with this lady that came to the door. She said it was very violent sex. He was pulling her hair. He had her doggy style, and had the girl doggy style, pulling her hair, smacking her, and just vicious. She said that when he saw her come in, he smiled at her and said, this is how a woman pleases a man. She is, I think he said, like, she's so much better than you. You need to sit down and watch what is expected from you. And she did. Okay, so after that night, visits like this became quite frequent. She said, I'm going to end up having my makeup done before. I'm sorry, but I'll go ahead and finish and just finish the story too. But she said that night it became frequent. And originally the women were showing up really late at night. And then the more it happened, the earlier the women showed up. She said Peter thought that he had the right to do this. She said that when it happened, she no longer went downstairs to investigate. She heard the screaming, she heard the crying, she heard the violent sex, but never went to investigate again. She never specifies where the son was, what he witnessed or anything. And that was probably by design, and I get that, and that's okay, but I just wanted to mention there is a child in the house. So she never went back down to investigate until the night she did. So there was one night, and it doesn't say how long this has been going on, but one night the screaming and the crying was different. She said there was something different, something going on. She didn't know what per se, but there was something scary, different going on, and she decided to investigate. She said she went downstairs and and this girl was begging him to stop. She was in pain. I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to put this up here. She was in pain. She was struggling. He was violently raping her, and so she tried to step in. And when she did, he grabbed her, pulled her down, and proceeded to rape her the same way he had been raping the, I guess, prostitutes. That's what she called them. I have to assume that's what they were. The other women. And she was like, okay. She was so confused. I have to look at my notes here where I'm at. That he would treat her this way. And she stated again she didn't deserve to be treated this way. All she did was try to be a good wife. So I told you we had heard that numerous times, and I get that sentiment. I really do, and I understand why she keeps saying it. But in this case, with these other women, it wasn't just her being brutally and viciously attacked. There was more. And unfortunately, she never said much about them. And I don't know if, pardon me, I don't know if it was self-preservation, like she was concerned about herself and trying to live through this situation. I don't know, but nobody deserved to be hurt. So I get she's saying that she didn't deserve it, and she didn't at all, but neither did the other women. So she said she didn't know what to do, but she knew she needed to get out of there as quickly as possible. It's like there was just no other doubt. So she said Peter was escalating out of control, and she was ready to leave, and made the fateful decision to tell him that she couldn't take it no more, and she wanted a divorce. We all know, without me saying, how badly this probably went. So she said Peter started screaming and yelling, calling her names, telling her there's nowhere she could go. She was never going to leave him. And she had nowhere to go. He had no friends, blah, 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 She said then he grabbed Daniel. Don't know how Daniel was at this time. But Peter grabbed Daniel and ran up the stairs and held this baby over the banister, threatening to drop him because she said she was going to leave. Obviously. She said, forget it. I'm sorry. I don't know what I was talking about. I didn't mean it. Just forget I said it. Please don't hurt Daniel. Bring him back down. Yada, yada, yada. But you get it. Come on. None of us would have done anything different. So, but that was the first time he actually, that she tells us, threatened to hurt Daniel. So, sorry, I needed my glue for my lashes. So he finally brought him over and told him, he said, if you leave, I will kill you and your son. So she didn't know what she was going to do, but she knew she had to get him out. Then a break, or in my opinion, a blessing happened. One afternoon, Peter told her he had to go out, and he was in a rush. So he ran out of the room, or he was running out of the house, shouting at her as usual, doing his normal things. And when he left, he forgot to lock the door. So she thought it was a trick. She thought it was a test. But she still walked over to the door and tried it to make sure it was locked. She said then she shut it, or she kind of looked outside, didn't see him, because she was expecting him to be standing there, right? She said she looked outside. He wasn't there, so she shut the door thinking she'd give it a few minutes because the minder was going to be there. Peter never left unless the minder was coming over. So she waited some more time. And the minder never came. So she said, she had to leave. So she went in. I'm sorry, I was trying to find my notes. She went in and grabbed a bag for Daniel, grabbed some stuff for her, grabbed some change that she had been squirreling away, she said, and headed out the front door. So she was so scared. She's not allowed out that front door by herself. And she just expected him to show up at any moment. She expected some of his friends to show up and grab her. She expected the minder. She just had this in her head, what was going to happen, and he was going to kill her because she was not allowed outside. Said she almost turned around. She said, I almost gave in to my fear and turned around. She said, but I couldn't because I had to protect Daniel. So she said, they left. She said the whole time she was leaving, she was terrified. Now, confusingly enough, it doesn't tell us much more than that, other than she escaped to her grandfather's or grandparents' house, which was hundreds of miles away. So there had to have been a story here. There had to have been, how did this happen? What did she do to get out completely and away from him? But it's not ever told. So I'm really curious how she did that. Hundreds of miles away is not something you would typically walk with a young child. I don't know. So did she get far enough away? Did she call her grandparents? I don't know. I just don't know. But it says she got away and escaped her grandfather's or grandparents' house and tried to restart her life. So, again, never mentioned, I can't get it open. Very confusing. He just let her go. I got it all over this little thing. He just let her go. He didn't try to stop her. I mean, I can't talk and do this at the same time. I'll be right back. Okay, I just went on and finished, and let's just do this. So, I don't mean he tried to stop her because we saw, or she told us how she escaped and he was gone. What I meant was, he didn't go to the grandmother's house and try to convince her to come home, bring her home, drag her home, any of that. I would have thought he would have done something, and he didn't. So, yeah, it just says, okay, she's at her grandparents' house, and she's starting her whole life, and things are going well. She's smiling again. Her and Daniel are having, a good time. But she always had Peter in the background of her mind, which when she said that, I knew, here he comes again. There's something going on. And true enough, there he comes. One morning, she gets a phone call from the police. And okay, I'm just going to say, and I'm going to say it right now so I don't have to say it in a minute. I'm internally screaming about this. Like, I'm having a difficult time. So anyways, the police call her to let her know that Peter had raped, assaulted, and left for dead 2 14-year-old girls. Kathy was convinced they were wrong. That the violence he had shown her was because she was a bad wife, and he would never do what they are claiming he did. However, the police told her they were not mistaken, and Peter Tobin was put in jail for 14 years for the brutal assault of the 2 14-year-olds. So honestly, in a perfect world, this should be it, right? There is no more story to tell. He's in prison. He stays there. Hopefully he dies there because he's older. But we wouldn't be here if that was it, would we? No, we wouldn't be here. So, as Kathy's getting on in her life when Peter's in prison, again, one morning she gets another phone call from the police. No, from her aunt. So her aunt's calling her one morning and tells her to turn on the TV and find a news channel. So I don't know how long into the 14-year prison sentence this happened. I should have looked that up. I don't know if it would have even told. I'm sure it would have told me. Why didn't I look that up? I might look that up here in a minute. So the news had a picture of Peter, and the broadcaster was saying that, okay, where am I at? He was a known sex offender, jailed in 1994. It's the first time we got a timeline. And again, in 1994, I was 18, 19 years old. So she's in her early 20s. And you know, I forgot. At one point in the story, when she's talking about she knows she has to go, but she doesn't want to have to go home and tell her family she was a failure. And this is the first time she's actually mentioned family other than her grandparents. So again, I don't know who, what, where, when. But she was saying that she was 19 years old, had a child, and a disastrous marriage. So from 17 to 19, she got pregnant, she got married, and about that time is when she wanted to leave. So now, 1994, she would have been, let's see, I was 19, so maybe she was 23, 24. So she's still very young, and this is still very sad and whatnot. Okay. So her aunt tells her to look at the news. She said that it actually shows, and you hear newscasters talking about this Peter, as he's a known sex offender. He had, for the 2 assaults on the 14-year-old girls, the news was saying Peter was wanted for questioning in a murder of a young student. They said it was a very violent attack on the young lady. No one had informed Kathy that he was out of jail, that he was paroled, until she's hearing that he's wanted for a murder. How long had he been out? I don't know. But the newscasters, or it might have even been the police chief, I don't know, but it was saying, be on the lookout for him, do not approach, he's a violent man and dangerous to the public. Okay, so at this point, Kathy's terrified for her life. Everything that she's built's come crumbling her down. She was just paranoid and scared that he was going to show up, he was going to try to take her son from her, and she said she wouldn't leave the house. She said she was determined that she wasn't going to leave this house until he was caught. So then she received a phone call from the cops telling her that they wanted to tell her before she heard it on the news, which, hey, would have been nice if they told her he was paroled before she heard it on the news, but semantics, right? But they wanted to let her know before she saw it on the television that the level of violence of the murder of this student, and for someone of Peter's age, which again, they don't really tell us, but we know he's 20 years older than her, so he's 40s, maybe 50. But this kind of violence is seen in serial killers. The police told her that they were going to start searching their old home and see what they can find the next day. So I guess it was nice they told her that before she turned on the news, and voila, they were digging up her yard, or in the house, digging up the yard of the house she used to live in. So next we see that very thing. We see video footage of police, and lots of police, digging in the backyard, doing lots of digging. Like I said, it was a decent-sized backyard. The news comes on and says, in their digging, they had found a body. Okay. They show a picture of the victim they found, and she was a young girl. She was in a classic schoolgirl uniform, and I don't remember her name. I do have that for later. I will show pictures of the victims and their names. So, as they're digging, they find a second victim, and Kathy is just completely mortified. I mean, she'd been living in this house, and he'd been burying bodies in the backyard. But worse than that, oh, this just gives me the creeps and makes me sick. He buried them under the sand pit that he had made for his son, that his son played in every day. I'm just gonna let that sit for a minute. Let that stew, because just because. Okay. So then it clips on us since Peter was finally apprehended. It does not tell us again how long he'd been on the run, how they caught him, yada, yada, yada. But they caught him. And he was given 3 life sentences for the murders of 3 girls. So the one that they found originally, the 2 that he had buried in the backyard. The police suspected that there were more killings and that he was responsible for more deaths and started searching for this. And they were looking at all the unsolved murders from 1968 to now, one of them being a girl as young as 9 years old. However, nothing was found that he had anything to do with them. So he was only convicted for the 3. Now, we come back to Kathy to close out the show, and she says that she now believes that when Peter would disappear for hours on end or overnight, he was stalking and killing these young girls. Yeah, probably Kathy. And she, I think, as every victim does, starts wondering what she could have done different, how she could have prevented this, what she could have done different. So she said she does blame herself. She said she had choices. She chose to walk up to him and meet him. She chose to start dating him. She chose to move in with him quickly. She chose all of this. And she chose to stay and make her marriage work. Again, the blaming, the justification, I don't like. But this was her thoughts. And even now, this was recorded in 2016. So even now, I think she still believes she could have prevented this or stopped it. But she spends all her time now for her son Daniel and making up for the horrors that she put him through when they were married, or when she was married and stayed with Peter. Okay, so that was the end of the episode, and as I am wont to do, I pulled up Mr. Google, and first thing I found as soon as I put in Peter Tobin it said Peter Tobin is a Scottish serial killer. So this is the first time we know where they're at. Like I said, I knew there was some kind of accent and certain words and sayings and being at a pub at 16 and whatever. I knew it wasn't the United States. I mean, like I said, at no point that I've ever known in my lifetime have you been able to go to a pub and drink at 16, at least legally, right? And so I'm very curious what the laws were in Scotland regarding that, but I didn't Google it. It was really irrelevant to the story at hand. So, Peter was born in the United Kingdom in 1946. So, if Kathy is 20 years younger, that means she would have been born in 64 to 65. So, yeah, she's probably about 8-9 years older than myself. But she looks great. I found out that Peter and Kathy were married from 1989 to 1993. A very short time, but clearly a traumatic time. Clearly. And her son, I cannot remember, but I was thinking he was born in 89. Yeah, thinking. Because I was thinking he was older than my child, and which any of that time from 89 to 93, he would have been older than my oldest son, who was born in 94, but I was trying to get a timeline there. I didn't really look because he deserves his peace and quiet. You know, he's been through a lot being the son of Peter and probably has to live with that every day of his life. So Peter is a serial killer and sex offender active between 1991 and 2006. So he was married a couple years before he started killing, but it was leading up to it and all the violence that he was doing. 3 confirmed killings, but there are believed to be more. But like I said, nothing else was confirmed. So currently, he's 75 years old, and he's serving a life sentence in prison in HM Prison, Edinburgh, Scotland. Tobin has had some serious medical issues, but has never been let out. They just had him at the infirmary, whatever. He's never been out the door. He has boasted in prison that he has killed 48 people. I doubt this, and I will tell you why here in a minute. I don't doubt that he's boasted. I doubt the stories that I'm reading here are coherent. So, I'll get to that. Tobin was married 3 times. 2 of them were teenagers at 17 years old, including, well, I think Kathy was actually 16 years old. So one was 17, one was 16. Kathy was his last wife because he went to prison and everything afterwards. He has 3 children, a boy and a girl with his second wife, but the daughter passed away shortly after she was born. And then Daniel was the other child with Kathy. Nothing is ever mentioned of his children other than Daniel in this story, which, of course, Kathy would mention him. She's telling the story. He's her child. But I didn't look them up. Again, I truly feel they deserve their peace and privacy and don't need people looking them up and trying to do whatever. So, all 3 of the marriages were said to be extremely violent. No surprise. So there's an interesting mention of Peter being tied to another serial killer named Bible John. So Bible John was killing in the Glasgow area in the 60s. And since Peter lived in that area at that time before Kathy, they actually looked to see if they could connect him to this killer. However, he was eliminated due to not actually being in the right place at the right time, I guess you could say. And then later, when DNA became prevalent, they did testing and he was eliminated as having anything to do with the Bible John killings. So, I didn't look into Bible John. One thing you will know about me, I don't like to go too far into the rabbit hole that is called Google because I'm discussing this ID series Evil Lives Here, this one episode, and I don't want to bring in others episodes, other stories, things that I can find and try to confuse the situation. I mean, I just stick to what I'm seeing, and that's what I'm talking about. So, this is where I question his 48 killings confession. It is said that he never leaves his jail cell. Ever. So, how are you going to tell people you killed 48 people? So, somewhere there is a, maybe he doesn't leave his jail cell now. Maybe he's sick, and it did say he's been really sick. But, so before that, maybe he did boast and get out more often. I'm not real sure. But he will spend the rest of his life in prison and eventually die there. And as long as all the good Lord is willing, that will stay true. So I'm going to end with a picture of his victims. I'm going to pull that up right now and attach it for you to look at. So the names of his victims were Angelique Cluck, Vicky Hamilton, and Dinah McNichol. Okay, so when you're looking at the picture, it's left to right. Now, the young lady in pink, which is Angelique Cluck, she was the one that actually was Peter's downfall. She was the one he killed that they found and knew he did. It doesn't give specifics of what he did and how he did it, that he was caught. But the other 2 victims, including the girl Dinah, that was in the picture I was talking about earlier with the schoolgirl uniform, and those 2 were actually buried in the sand pit out back. So that is the story of ID Channel's Evil Lives Here, season 1, episode 3, Cheating Death, and Peter Tobin. And yeah, if there's ever been an evil, nasty person, he probably fits that bill really well. So, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, please like and share. Trying to build up a base on YouTube. Check me out on Facebook and Instagram as well, please. And until next time, guys, be safe, take care, and I'll see you later.